Cool. All right. So welcome to Flip the Switch. Today we've got Paul Goodman here, one of the founders and CFO at Pura Vida. Super excited to have Paul. What we're going to talk about today is a combination of growth, as always, leading indicators and KPIs, and then some conversation around partnerships and team building, and really where Paul sees the future of direct-to-consumer businesses and some of the things that he's excited about further down the road. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a quick introduction to Paul. We're super lucky to have him here on the podcast. And Paul is kind of a entrepreneurial celebrity from San Diego State, so very well known here in San Diego. He started Pura Vida, I think about 10 years ago. Is that right?
Yep.
And it was started on a surf trip to Costa Rica with some friends, which is pretty awesome, way to find an opportunity. And Paul's been featured on Forbes Magazine 30 Under 30. Pura Vida has been on the Inc. 5000 list multiple times. And one of the really cool things with Paul and the Pura Vida team is that they've been able to donate, I think, $1 million plus to about 160 charities worldwide. I'm sure that number is probably even higher at this point. What's the count up to now?
Yeah, we're actually right above $2 million. So pretty stoked on that.
Very cool. And, most recently, Paul and the Pura Vida team had a really successful transaction, which I read online was to Vera Bradley. And I think they bought a majority stake for over $75 million. So certainly a very successful, exit. And so, Paul, before we get into the nitty gritty, would love to hear kind of the quick download on that and what this year and the start of this year has been like for you.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, my business partner and I started Pura Vida after a surf trip 10 years ago to Costa Rica. We met two artisans on the beach who were homeless at the time. They had these bright, colorful bracelets on the beach and this small little stand that they were selling bracelets to tourists as they walked by. And we walked by and bought 400 bracelets from them and told them that we wanted to help them and, come back to the States and sell their bracelets. And fast forward, 10 years later, we support over 800 artisans worldwide, selling their bracelets, distributing them online as well as to different retail stores.
And that's awesome. And so obviously last year at the transaction, I'm sure that was a really big deal and huge accomplishment. But along that journey, I guess, there's all those accolades that I mentioned and all the accomplishments. But for you personally, what are you most proud of, and what are kind of what's the biggest accomplishment that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of different accomplishments, but what stands out in my mind is being able to build a team that I enjoy working with every single day, focused on a common goal of helping people across the world, donating back to charities, and really building a business that's doing good in this world, as opposed to just running a business strictly for profit.
That's awesome. And how big is your guys' team now?
We have about 40 people in the office.
That's awesome. And I think it's good perspective, and we're obviously going to talk about direct-to-consumer businesses and what you all have done, but I think most of us would like to have a business that's doing 70 million plus in revenue with only 40 people on the team. It allows you to really make a big difference and keep it pretty tight-knit. So that's obviously one of the big benefits. Yeah,
for sure.
And what has the start of the year been like for you all at Pura Vida? Obviously 2020 is a very odd, year, but lots of opportunity that comes with it as well. How has it kind of impacted you all, and where's your head been at with that?
Yeah, I think going into the year, we had huge aspirations, and I think like most people, this year's been a big roller coaster ride. We were kicked off the year super strong, and then COVID kind of hit, and we had like a 2 to 3 week period where it was really scary. E-commerce kind of fell off a cliff. All of our wholesale business went to zero. But then once the stimulus checks started coming out, we had shoppers again on our site and actually, crushing our numbers now and where we were at. So it's been pretty incredible to see just kind of like the ups and downs. And I think we've really just had to lean on each other and the team to, keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the neat things for us at Power Digital is that, we've got about 200 active clients, and the majority of them are e-commerce, direct-to-consumer brands. And we've just seen a huge lift in online shopping in general, and a generational lift too, where, my mom and some of the older demographics are starting to be forced to shop more online. And so obviously we expect to see even more of that in the future as people have become much more comfortable with it and realized, that it's easy to do, and you don't need to necessarily go to a retailer to purchase. So obviously you guys have benefited from that, and we've seen the majority of the e-commerce brands also benefit from that. And so, hey, one of the things that I think is really interesting and wanted to dive into with you is more talking, metrics and finance when it comes to business. Yep. And so I guess, first of all, take us down the path as to how you kind of went the CFO route and what brought you, into that role.
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up and going to college, I was always interested in math and interested in, numbers, problem solving. That kind of just took me down the path of getting a financial, business degree at San Diego State. I always wanted to basically help athletes, manage their money. That was like my plan before I went on a surf trip to Costa Rica. And then so when I got back, it was just like we hit the ground running. And Griffin, my business partner, is super good at marketing, and I was always good at finance. So I just put my head down and focused on that, while he put his head down and focused on marketing. And we kind of have separate lanes that we stay in. So that was just always what I enjoyed doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think especially for a business that has products and inventory, cash flow and some of those metrics can be really challenging. And so having a really strong financial discipline and methodology probably was a big value driver for you guys. What have been kind of the leading indicators that you all have used to run and manage the business over the years, and kind of how have those evolved?
Yeah, I mean, we focus on a couple key leading indicators like gross profit, our percent of marketing spend to our total revenue, CPA, return on ad spend, average order value. Those are kind of what we focus on, as well as amount of months of inventory on hand.
And how do you all view those in real time, and what do you share with your team versus, what do you keep at the executive level? What has been your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the team, we've never really believed in eliminating any info. It's like, let's have an open organization and share all the info with everyone on the team, so everyone can manage two common goals. And in terms of dashboards, we just have like a weekly call to go over basically our key metrics with the leadership team. And, if something doesn't look right or something looks off, then we'll shift some, spend up or shift marketing spend down, just change things on the fly.
Yeah. And I think that approach that you all put into place, where you're just super transparent with the entire organization, I really see that as the future. And that's what we've also done at Power Digital. It's interesting because in our business, the vanity metric is always revenue. And, that's what people always talk about. But the value driver is really EBITDA, or, net profit. And so for us, all of our team members and departments have their own P&L, and it's all based on EBITDA goals. And so, it's interesting because over the years, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. How are you sharing that with your team? But I think it really has been a huge part of our success. And it sounds like it's the same approach that you all have used.
Yeah, and we've always focused on profitability. Even when we're, scaling the company and doubling year over year, it's always been focused on, if we're not profitable at the end of the day, like, you're not running a well-run business. It's like we've never believed in growing top line and not having any profit. So I think having the team be able to focus on that is a huge benefit.
Yeah, and so I guess looking at some of those leading indicators, obviously gross profit, percentage of marketing spend, cost per acquisition, average order value. Have you all been able to do anything creative with your team's compensation plan so that their comp, has upside and aligns with those, or what have you all done around that?
We haven't yet, but I think it's something that we're looking to explore. But as of right now, we haven't been able to do that.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's always tough. I know, I started in a sales organization working at Xerox, and it's very easy to do that with salespeople. But I think when you look at marketing and then you look at operations and finance, it
Yeah.
becomes a lot tougher. But I really feel that the more that you can align everyone's interest where you win together and then you lose together, uh, the more of an ownership mentality that the staff will take, and the more everybody's on the same page and rowing the boat in the same direction. But I haven't really yet seen it perfected in a direct-to-consumer brand, because I think that there's a lot of challenges compared to our business. I think it's probably a little easier to build that type of model.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for you, I guess when you're looking at metrics and the way that you guys look forward in the business, how has that evolved over the years? Did you start on kind of a back of the napkin model that you had built and scaled out, or what are the life cycles that you went through with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we kind of did exactly that, like back of the napkin, just like some rough numbers. And, as we continued to scale up our marketing spend through, social media and Facebook and Instagram, and really determine like, hey, here's our AOV, here's, what we can back into in terms of cost per acquisition. And it becomes more defined. But then, as you refine your product categories and you increase your AOV, you constantly need to be adjusting what you can spend on marketing. And also as you add more team, payroll increases, your marketing might have to be more efficient at that point to, keep the profitability. So I think it's just an ever changing model, and something that needs to be looked at on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis.
For sure. And so how, for average order value specifically, because it's interesting with e-commerce, it's kind of the simple equation of what's the cost to prospect new traffic, by your conversion rate, by your average order value, and then ultimately by your lifetime value. And you guys probably have great data on that after 10 years or so. But what have you guys done to really dial in and grow your average order value? Because I feel like that is a combination of marketing, but then also product. And so how have you kind of bridged that gap, and what have been some of the moves that you've made?
Yeah, I think, we started with a simple $5 bracelet, and that was like, we were selling $5 bracelets online and people were looking at us like, you're crazy. Like, how do you even make money doing that? And so we had to be like super, almost like hacky, where we would, we added stuff on the site where you can add a mystery bracelet, and basically you can't even see, the picture of the product. You can add that to your cart for $4. Small little upsells like that. Or, then we came out with rings and we slowly increased pricing. So I would say it's a combination between marketing strategies, increasing product pricing over time, and then, focusing on your higher value customers and targeting them to come back and buy again.
Yeah. And so as you've expanded the product line, what is the product line today? So you've got bracelets, rings. What else?
Bracelets, bracelets, rings, necklaces, earrings, anklets, basically all facets of jewelry, as well as like some accessories like hairbands. We're coming out with some backpacks.
Nice. So I'll definitely buy a backpack. My wife says that one of my worst guilty habits is being a backpack fanatic. I probably have 3 of them, and I probably use 3 of them. So
there you go.
You put me on that list when that comes out. How have you guys kind of decided those categories? Have you put a methodology in place to be able to kind of test and get feedback from your customers, or how have you driven that?
Yeah, most of it's been through our customers, either sending out surveys or having in-person focus groups. But yeah, all of it's been driven through our customers.
Nice. And so I guess for you guys, as you're looking at your metrics and KPIs, how do you make them actionable? Because, we see that I think data is so valuable, especially for a direct-to-consumer brand, because you're just getting so much data. But where I see a lot of brands falling short is actually, okay, now what do we do with this, and how do we, iterate and take advantage of what we know? So how have you all been able to make that actionable and then kind of share that across different parts of the organization?
Yeah, I think that's the key aspect, is sharing it across all parts of the organization and having each team being able to work together. So if the digital ad spend team, sees something that's working, they need to be able to quickly relay back that to the marketing team, so they could, shoot different creative or adjust, the product lines in the upcoming seasons, so that everyone can kind of cohesively work together to make the changes. Because I think if each team is working in a silo, it's not going to work. So I think that data needs to be easily shared across teams.
And so do you guys have preset kind of like scrums or monthly or quarterly meetings where you're diving into that and people are bringing those insights, or is it more ad hoc, on Slack or kind of as you go?
Yeah, ours is more like, ad hoc as we go. I mean, we do have quarterly meetings to review kind of progress, but yeah, I think it was just like as we go, just constantly evolving and making changes on like a weekly basis.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things, that I've learned from you as we've, spoken is kind of the way that you guys have interacted between finance, operations, design, marketing. I guess, how did you guys put that into play? I think that's having a siloed company is one of the biggest challenges that all entrepreneurs face as they're scaling. So how do you think you're able to build that culture where there is really strong collaboration between those teams? And I guess what are some of the specific stories or wins that you've experienced from that?
Yeah, I think both Griff and I's like management style is very allowing our employees to kind of like take an idea and just run with it. I would say neither of us are like micromanagers. So I think that instills that like the like go-getter attitude to each person on the team, and creates that like connectivity and people working together. Yeah, so I think that's been a huge benefit.
Nice. And what do you think, I guess, in your experience as an entrepreneur, what do you think are some of the most overused metrics or KPIs that you hear businesses talking about or focused on that you just don't see value in? What would be those?
I mean, I think lifetime value for me is like, it's a really tough indicator, just because I feel like, you can get a little over your skis in terms of spending when you're just focused on lifetime value. And, I think it's easy for a marketing company to say, hey, your lifetime value is $100. Like we could spend over, a certain amount on the first order and it not be profitable, because lifetime value in the long run, you're going to make money. And I think companies get in trouble with that because they don't realize the implications in terms of cost, inventory, and kind of your burn rate. And they get in trouble with that. And I think we had a mistake in the beginning of our business where all we focused on was lifetime value. And we were just spending. And it's like, we're going to run out of cash if we keep doing this. And that's where we dialed it back to be profitable on just first order. So I think that's been a metric that new companies need to watch out for.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I guess on that note, is that probably one of the scariest times, or what would be one of the scariest times that you all had from a finance perspective, where you're like, things are going great and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, we could be in real trouble?
Yeah, I think that was one of the times. I mean, like I remember not being able to sleep at night because we were spending so much on advertising, and we were always just focused on lifetime value because that's what we were being told from, the marketing agency we were using. And I knew it wasn't working out, and we were just spending and burning inventory. And they kept assuring us like, hey, you'll make this money back eventually. But it's like, when you're a young company, eventually might not be there, So I think you got to focus on being profitable and being able to support the growth with cash flow.
Yep. Yeah. And for the record, for those of you listening, that marketing company was not Power Digital giving that advice. So.
Definitely not Power Digital.
And so I guess, one thing that I've learned over the last year, going through the deal that we did with the private equity firm Periscope, is we had to really professionalize our accounting and finance. And, I thought that we were pretty strong in that area and definitely scrappy and very data driven in the way that we operated our business. But I've learned over the last year and a half that there is a whole nother level when dealing with, private equity backed company and having a bank involved. And obviously you guys were acquired by Vera Bradley, which is a public company. So how have those requirements changed for you? And, what have you learned, I guess, so far on that journey?
Yeah, definitely kind of the same thing as you, we always thought we had it buttoned up and everything was like running smoothly, but yeah, public companies are a different ball game, different requirements in terms of reporting, and a lot more pressure to hit your numbers, and your forecast better be perfectly accurate and correct. And, when it's just me and Griff and it's, it didn't really matter, if we hit our forecast or not, it was just, that was on us. But now we have shareholders to answer to and a board to answer to, and it's just a lot more, pressure, but I like it.
Yeah, for sure. I know that was one of the funny things is when we used to operate the business before, it would be like each quarter, okay, where are we? This heavy reoccurring revenue business. And then we would up our forecast for the next quarter, and it's like, do better, do better, do better. And there's a lot of good, I think, that comes from that. It allows you to really have, when it's your business, you're always making those decisions from the most authentic and best place and long-term view. But then all of a sudden, when you got to publish a year out forecast and then a multi-year forecast, it definitely forces you to think things through and be a lot more, adhere a lot more to the original business plan.
Yeah.
Versus kind of the rapid pivots. And so what does your finance and accounting team look like today? I guess, how do you have that staffed and how does that look compared to pre-acquisition?
So pre-acquisition, we outsourced most of the finance, like day-to-day work, to just a third-party like agency. So with that, we had like a part-time controller, part-time CFO, and like a day-to-day bookkeeper. They came in a couple of days a week. And then transitioning to Vera Bradley, we now utilize all of their back office functions in terms of like accounting, sales tax, bookkeeping. And then we hired a director of finance who works alongside myself and Griffin and kind of integrates with the Vera Bradley team. And he has, public company experience, and he's actually worked with some of the guys on the Vera Bradley team before. So it's been a great transition. And I would say, much more buttoned up, much more professional now, much easier to access all of our info and financials. And yeah, it's been a good transition.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure if you're like me, you've just probably learned a tremendous amount, but both in a good way, things that are great to learn and that you want to mature in and professionalize, but also probably things that you realize, you know what, I don't know if I like this as much about running this size business or being a part of a public company.
For sure. Yeah. I think it goes both ways. It's like being part of a public company it's just a lot more stress but it pushes you a lot harder, which I like.
Nice. So switching gears outside of kind of leading indicators in finance, wanted to talk a little bit about, partnerships and the importance in talent diversity and, whether it's with partners or whether building a team, having different skill sets. And I think, one of the things that's really interesting with your guys' story is you have such a long track record together and are such close friends and have been able to really balance that. And I think that is very tough to do. So I guess give us the quick rundown on you and Griffin and how you guys kind of met and your time together.
Yeah. Griffin and I went to high school together, actually. I knew him in high school, wasn't really friends. And then when I came down to San Diego, go to San Diego State, he was 1 year ahead of me. So we kind of like bonded in college, always had like business ideas and would always like talk about starting businesses and running different businesses. And then we went on this trip to Costa Rica and met these guys on the beach. And I remember being on the bus in Costa Rica, going from town to town, and us just like writing a business plan and writing the story down, and just like it just gelled. Like we just always had like the same mindset of wanting to create businesses. And I think what works is he's complete opposite like brain as me. Like he's marketing, OCD, like can't focus, and I'm like operations, finance, numbers. He wants nothing to do with my job, and I don't want anything to do with his job. So it's like a good balance.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the perfect type of partnership where, I like this concept. I know we talked about it before, but of your personal hedgehog, where it's, what is your superpower in business and what are you the world's best at? And then what is your passion? And then the third bucket being the economic engine for the company. And how do you take what you're really great at and what you're really passionate about and tie it back to what drives value for the company? And it sounds like, with the two of you, you kind of check all those boxes and are able to really allow each other to play towards their strengths and passions and create a really strong partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
And how do you guys draw the lines outside of work? Because, I started Power Digital with my college roommate and my cousin. And, one of the challenges that we'd have is that when you're hanging out, then in your free time, it's really hard. And I have a lot of friends that I work with now. It's hard to not talk about business constantly. And which I think is a cool thing, but also a challenging thing. So how have you guys drawn any lines, or how do you avoid driving your spouse insane by the constant business talk, and the rest of your friends insane by the constant business talk?
Yeah, I don't know, like for some reason we've always just we've been able to separate it. And normally like I like talking about business all the time. So it's been relatively easy. I think in the beginning days, we were roommates as well. And so it was just like constant, like we'd come home from the office and we'd sit on the couch and just keep working and keep working. And I think that's what fueled us to grow the business to where we've got it to. And I think it's just, you need to have those times where you could plan either trips or plan events where you're not working on business, and it's just like to see friends and to hang out. So I think we've been able to do that well, whether it's a surf trip or, spending time with other friends that aren't involved in our business, and just trying to have that balance.
Yeah, I would say that you guys do a real good job of planning awesome trips. I think that might be a future a career for you guys on your Instagram and that type of thing. So you touched on leadership style, and I think you were saying earlier that, from the top down, you guys are not micromanagers and are, really believe in empowering people to handle their role and do their thing. Tell me a little bit about how your leadership style has evolved, because I remember when I went from top individual performer to manager, I was a terrible manager. Like, it was just hard for me. And I made lots of mistakes. I would just jump in and do it for the team member, and then they never truly learn, and that it's, can get taken advantage of, or you become a crutch for them. So there's a lot of lessons that I went through. What are some of the lessons, and how has your leadership style evolved as you guys went from just a couple of you up to 40 team members?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, when it was just a couple of us, I was always so focused on just like my personal day-to-day tasks and getting the job done. And didn't really take enough time to take a step back and think about the people that we were working with, and think about what was going on in terms of their personal life or their day-to-day work, and kind of taking that step back and connecting with them on a more personal level. So I think that's been a huge lesson over the past 10 years, as well as just really understanding that, you are the owner of a business. Someone else who's working for you technically isn't, and they possibly might not have that same drive or that love for the business as you do, but they still want to work hard. So how do you empower them and give them the tools necessary to be able to love their job and then come into work every day and enjoy what they're doing, even if they aren't, an owner of the business?
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing that I've done, and it kind of flies in the face, I think, of what a lot of business books or advisors would recommend, but I think that you guys might have done something pretty similar. But I've definitely recruited really tight from within our team's network, and even within my own friends, and had a lot of success with that. Not always just like your best friends, but just people that you already have a good relationship with and respect. And I find that it could bring a lot of loyalty and commitment, and starts you off on a deeper level than sometimes just somebody that you interviewed. Is that something that you guys have done? And has that been a successful approach for you when it comes to team building and recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, our first employee was my sister, actually. And then our second employee was our best friend from college. So we've definitely gone down that route and experienced that. And then in the beginning, we were just, hiring friends to help out. And I think there's ups and downs in that. Is, people will be more loyal, but then it's hard to really kind of mold those people because they look at you as like just a friend. So we've had huge success in utilizing our team members, helping recruit people who they've worked with at other companies, who they've seen their working style, they've seen their work ethic, and then basically recruit them over to Pura Vida.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great approach. I mean, I consider myself have a pretty good eye for talent. I think it's one of my superpowers in business, and something that I'm passionate about. I just love working with the people, but it's easy to be wowed in an interview. And you really, when you get into the battle and the trenches, is when you really get to see what people are made of. And it's just really hard to flush that out in an interview. Whereas if you have team members that can vouch for them and have seen it, the success rate just goes through the roof.
Oh,
So
for
that's
sure. I
interesting.
mean, yeah, I mean, if you have a rock star employee and they just crush their job and you say, hey, do you know anyone to fill this open position? And they're like, hey, this person is perfect. They're probably going to fill it with someone like them. So
Totally. Yeah, and I think it really brings that core values alignment. In the early days at Power Digital, we didn't have the right people. We had some really talented marketers, but culturally, it really was not what we were trying to build. And so we were fortunate to kind of get that group out early on and then bring in a really good nucleus. And then what I found is that those people will attract other great people, and it starts with them being a great human being and person outside of business. And if I don't, it doesn't really matter how talented they are. If they don't have that, it's pretty difficult to build a company that you're going to be proud to be a part of and want to battle with, day in and day out.
for sure.
So yeah, I guess on switching gears a little bit, for you when you're looking at the next phase, of your career, and I think that you're pretty happy where you are and still have a lot that you want to accomplish at Pura Vida. But I guess what does that look like? And then what are some of the things that you want to, do in the future that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, right now I am pretty happy. We have still a sizable piece of the business. We have our 2, 3, 5-year goals that I'm excited to try and achieve with the team that we have, as well as adding additional team members to Pura Vida. So I think continuing to kind of stay the course. The one benefit of, or not just one, but one of the benefits with Vera Bradley is they really let us run our own business, and it's kind of standalone from their business. So nothing's really changed on the day-to-day aspect of Pura Vida, even after the deal, which is nice. So continuing to build the brand into what we know it can become, and after that, explore what's next.
Nice. And I guess a quick question on that. So for Vera Bradley, I'm assuming part of their investment thesis was that they had some potential revenue synergies on the customer base that you had or that other companies in their portfolio had. Have you all done cross marketing with some of the other brands and been able to realize any of that, even though you're able to still run and operate your business pretty much, standalone?
That's kind of like what we're just getting into now, after the whole integration piece. But yeah, we're their first acquisition, so this is kind of the test model for them.
Nice. And I think that's super exciting, where it's kind of same customer, different product, and being able to cross promote via email or social and really reduce that prospecting cost to reach a new customer. So be excited to see how that goes. So real hard question for you. Will you ever start another business from scratch, from the ground up? You see yourself doing that?
Dude, I think I would. I really enjoy just building. I like that building phase and getting that first sale. Some of those, the funnest moments were those early days, and seeing a business just start from scratch is pretty awesome to see.
Nice. I don't know if I can share the same. I mean, I think I love the building too, more than just the operating phase, but man, when you're having to, beg for business and do that, it's tough. But I think in the consumer space makes a lot more sense. And certainly you guys have just had so much success and been such a great story that I get why you wouldn't be as scared of it as maybe some others that have been through that too.
Yeah.
And so what industries and categories are you kind of following and keeping your pulse on as you're looking to invest in stuff or advise, or even just what the future holds? What are some categories that are really interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think staying in the e-commerce retail space, interests me. It's curious to see what other products can be marketed and can be reinvented. Working with a couple brands right now, advising them just on marketing strategy and operations. And it's crazy to go into a company now knowing what I know and be like, hey, here's what we need to do for customer service. Here's what we need to do for fulfillment. Here's how we're going to set up your finances. Being able to take that knowledge and translate it to different companies and startups is a fun and exciting time.
Totally. Yeah, and I think being a whether it's a board member or advisor is a pretty cool gig where you get to share your insights and kind of some of the lessons learned along the way, but not necessarily have to do all the heavy lifting. Is that something that you're looking to do more of, right now? And if there's brands out there that are looking for that type of expertise, that you're open to having those conversations?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have like, two brands that I do it for right now. I'm just consulting on like a weekly basis. So it's super fun and I enjoy it.
Nice. And so I guess kind of wrapping up, what direct-to-consumer brands, you guys have been such a big success, and I think one of the real poster child for building a direct-to-consumer brand heavily focused on social, through influencers, content, ads. What brands do you see right now that you think are really doing some special things, but are maybe earlier stage, and that you could see having the type of success that you guys have had? Are there any that you have your eye on or that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, one of my best friends started the company called Blenders Eyewear, so they're crushing it right now. They sell affordable sunglasses. Also went to San Diego State. Another good friend runs a company called Cuts Clothing, t-shirts, and there you go, I'm wearing one too. So yeah, I mean, those are some of my best friends that I watch their brands and see them quickly growing as well.
Yeah, it's really cool to see those, two examples. I've owned product from both of them, and it's amazing to see the niche that they've carved out, because obviously sunglasses and t-shirts have been around for a long time. But I think actually yesterday I ordered about $500 worth of Cut shirts. It's the only t-shirt I'll wear now. They're just so much more comfortable and fit so much better than any other shirt that I've had. And so I think it's both those categories and the way that they've built those businesses are great, because it's not a one-time purchase, just like with your guys' product. Once people, love them and try them, they're going to want to have a closet full. And same thing with sunglasses. I don't think people are happy just having, one pair, and obviously you lose them, especially with the audience that they're going after.
Yeah.
There's going to be some lost and broken sunglasses along the way. So super cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, hey, Paul, really appreciate you joining, and it was great talking to you, and congrats on all the success, and looking forward to continuing to follow the journey and see how the integration works, and probably watch you guys just take it off at a whole nother level, being part of a bigger company. So appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's great to have me.
Cool.
All right.